See, if you're not careful, your senses can rob you. See, because your senses are drawing on a perception based on your senses, your current senses, based on what you touch, what you taste, what you smell, what you hear, and what you see. So if your perception, your mental mind map, is formed only on what you can currently see, smell, taste, touch, and hear, then anything outside of that doesn't seem sensible. So let's roll out with episode 510, but before we do, let's do some finger exercises, and we're gonna do both hands or either or, man. Put your thumbs to work. Up and down, left to right, back and forth. All right, now that you have your thumbs loosened, do me a favor. I need you to rate and review and share the Sales Life. And also leave the comments below too, man. Those comments I read every single one of them, man. I appreciate them that you take the time out to comment, to rate, to review, and to also share the show, because we got to get this show bigger and bigger. All right, rolling out with episode 510, Ed Mylett on his show, Maxed Out, had John Maxwell on there. And Ed made an offhand comment to John Maxwell. He said, who would have ever thought that an old preacher could leave his ministry and go on to become one of the most prolific thought leaders, business leaders, selling over 30 million books? Maxwell laughed it off. He said, yeah, it just doesn't make sense, does it? Yet he did it. And, all right, rolling out with episode 510, Ed Mylett on his show, Maxed Out, had John Maxwell on there. And Ed made an offhand comment to John Maxwell. He said, who would have ever thought that an old preacher could leave his ministry and go on to become one of the most prolific thought leaders, business leaders, selling over 30 million books? Maxwell laughed it off. He said, yeah, it just doesn't make sense, does it? Yet he did it. And, I suspect that looking back on it or looking forward to it, none of it made sense. I'm sure when he made the tough decision to leave his father's footsteps, because his father was a preacher too, and I'm sure when he made that decision to leave his father's footsteps, that my darn podcast went out. I'd be dog. Hold on. Boom. All right, so I'm sure when he made that decision to leave his father's footsteps, that it didn't make sense to leave a sure-paying gig, big congregation. They were under expansion. And he said, I'm going to leave the ministry and start writing books. Didn't make sense. And I'm sure looking back on it now, over 2 decades later, it still doesn't make sense. See, if you're not careful, your senses can rob you. See, because your senses are drawing on a perception based on your senses, your current senses, based on what you touch, what you taste, what you smell, what you hear, and what you see. So if your perception, your mental mind map, is formed only on what you can currently see, smell, taste, touch, and hear, then anything outside of that doesn't seem sensible. Doesn't make sense. See, when something is sensible, then what you're doing is you're forming a judgment. You're forming a judgment on how and what you can do in the future. And because you can't currently smell it, touch it, taste it, hear it, or see it, then you don't sense it to happen. And let me tell you something, man. Even when it doesn't make sense, work certain. See, it didn't make sense for John Maxwell. But see, he still worked certain. And see, when you work certain, certain is an adjective. It's a description of your action and of your effort. So when you work certain, applying the effort that you're determined to bring your future into a reality, even when your senses are sitting there rearing up saying, this doesn't make sense. I can't touch it. I can't taste it. I can't feel it. I can't all the way see it. See, your senses are taking current stock on what is right there in front of you. But when I work certain, I work with such a confidence that my senses have to take a back seat. See, you're working with that confidence. You're working with the fact that your future, the way that you see things, it's inevitable. So much so, bro, that your fight is fixed. It is. It's fixed. It's already fixed. I will succeed. I will win. Because even when it doesn't make sense, I work certain. I was talking yesterday, one of those deeper conversations, you know. And so I was talking yesterday and about how next month, the end of next month looks, and how the end of next year looks, and also how the end of this year looks too. And when I railed it all out, she looked at me with big eyes in amazement. And the only thing she could ask me was, how? If I used my senses, I couldn't describe how. That's why every day, dude, I have to work certain. And I told her, how's not my concern. The only thing I can do is work certain. And put the description of the right effort and the right action on it. And the things will turn into reality. See, I don't have everything to get to mile 50. I don't. But I have enough to get started from mile 1 to 2. And when I get to mile 2, I trust in the fact that at that mile 2, that I'll have enough information and equipment and connection to get me to miles 3 and 4. And the information that I get is not theoretical. It's experiential. And the only way that I'm going to get that is not in therapy. It's not in the classroom. It's only in the trenches. It doesn't make sense what mile 50 looks like for me. That part doesn't make sense because I'm only taking the current stock of where I'm at today, of what it looks like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, what it smells like. And see, when you're bombarded with the senses of overwhelming or something that blindsides you, or wherever your current situation is, if your senses are taking that in and it's forming a perception and also a judgment, then how will you ever achieve anything bigger? If all you're doing is you're relying on your senses and not working certain. You control that certain. You control the adjective, the description of the action and the effort. That's within your control. So let's rock out with today's TSL action item. Number 1, what do you want down the road, man? What do you see down the road? That your senses, bro, have been robbing you of. Number 2, how will you leverage? Describe the action that you're going to take right now. And even though it doesn't make sense, you're going to work certain. Email me at thesaleslife1@gmail.com. thesaleslife1@gmail.com. Don't forget, don't get dormant. Don't forget to put your thumbs to work. Share the show. Rate and review the show. And also leave your comments below.
Hey, thanks for watching. Obviously, if you got this far, dude, obviously you want more. So do not go anywhere. I've got another special episode queued up just for you right now.